Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Temple City Council for Thursday, January 16th, 2014. Please rise as Councilmember Schneider will lead us in the invocation this evening, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Shelley Fowler, Deputy City Secretary.
Please bow while we pray. Most gracious and Heavenly Father, we bow before you just thanking you for being our God and our provider, our director, and help us to take those directions and use those that most looks your direction. Lord, thank you for all the people that are represented in the city of Temple and how they work hard to keep this place a nice place to live and stay. Thank you for how you bless us with the weather today. Thank you for being our God and our provider. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Ms. Fowler, although she's been with the city for a while, is our new Deputy City Secretary, so congratulations and thank you for leading the pledge. Item number 3. Time to recognize the Scott and White Health Plan and HEB for their continued sponsorship and support in 2013 for various city events. We've got Mr. Sikora and Mr. Rams coming up.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor and members of council, and yet Chuck Ram, our recreation superintendent, will assist me. We are going to recognize 2 sponsors, HEB and Scott and White Health Plan, who have been with us a long time and have been very outstanding sponsors to make a lot of activities happen within our department that probably could not have otherwise without their support. And I'll start with HEB. HEB is, as I said, supported our activities for many years. This past year alone, they sponsored several 5 and 10K racing events by providing post-race food and drinks, including bottled water, cases of fruit, trail mix, granola bars, and even candy-filled eggs for our spring chicken run. They also sponsored the Mayor's Council, Fitness Council with 2 activities. One, they provided prizes for the Kids Fitness Expo, which is a program that occurs every May at the Mayburn Center, where we invite 3rd graders from the Belton and Temple ISDs to come, and they learn about health, safety, and exercise activities that they can do at their house. They also provided us with goodie bags for the walking school bus, which is a program we do with 6, again, Belton and Temple schools that gets the kids out and enjoying activities and exercise before school starts each day. But most importantly, they have been the title sponsor for our July 4th Family Fest for over the past decade. This is a significant sponsorship, and it provides our residents with the fireworks show that we see, and other activities throughout the day that we see each July 4th. Without their support, it would not be possible to produce this event. HEB is visibly giving back to the community and play a vital role in the success of this annual celebration. Tonight, we are pleased to recognize HEB for their support of the July 4th celebration, and we'd ask that Ed Page, who is the Director of Store Operations for the Central District of HEB, to come up and accept the plaque. And I think this is Ed's 2nd year. I think he was here last year, too.
Bring a couple of folks with us.
Okay. Mayor, do you want to come up and present?
Thank you for everything. We always enjoy the event and everything else that you do for us.
We appreciate being able to do it.
You want to say something?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Step back here.
All right.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, it's an honor to be here. Thank you very much for this honor. We truly appreciate that. I've got James Anderson from our 31st Street store here and Amy Lanehart from the Adams Street store just down the street. And these are the folks. I live in Waco, but these are the ones that make it happen for us. And HEB is just proud to be a part of Temple. And it's great that we're doing this today because actually I participated in the Arches Resolution 5K on Saturday. It was an absolutely, I guess, your first one. It was a great event. About 200 people participated. You have to do something about Lions Park, though, to start the race and run a mile uphill. There's something about starting a 5K and running uphill for a mile. I don't know. But I actually had my best time, so that's a good thing. But anyway, we truly appreciate the opportunity to be here in the Temple area, and what a great community, and we just are happy on behalf of all of us at HEB, all of our partners, and of course our leaders here in our stores. Thank you very much for this honor. We appreciate it and look forward to our continued relationship going forward. Thank you very much.
Ed mentioned the run, which a resolution run we called it because it's kicking off the year, and it was a huge success. And Ed, if you'd like, we'll put the hill at the end of the run. Somehow I think that'd be even worse.
Half a mile downhill.
Yeah, there you go.
Going up a mile and then down a half. But anyway, it worked out great. It's a good event. Thank you.
Next, we'd like to recognize the Scott and White Health Plan, who again have been active with many activities with the department, including over the years, including the senior adult Christmas dinner, which is an annual event we hold each year at the Mayburn Center, where we provide a holiday dinner for over 600 seniors. They sponsored the Mayor's Fitness Council Temple Trailblazers, which is an event we do in the springtime. It's a community walking challenge where we ask the participants to go out and walk each of our trails in town. They sponsor the corporate luncheon program, which is, again, sponsored by the Mayor's Fitness Council. It's held in May at the Mayburn Center, where we encourage and try to let businesses know how they can start a wellness program at their place of work. But the event we'd like to recognize them for tonight is, again, one that is, I think, very special to the community. It's the Hot Summer Sounds, which is now the Scott and White Hot Summer Sounds musical series that occurs every June and July at Miller Park. And it's actually gone on now, I think, for about 10 years, and 7 of those years have been sponsored by the health plan. They provide, through their sponsorship, they provide the music that is provided out there. But not only that, their staff come out and provide activities and door prizes at each of the weekly musical series. It is through the generosity of partners like Scott and White Health Plan that we are able to do events like this. And I'd like Alan Einboden, the Chief Executive Officer for Scott and White Health Plan, to come up and receive a plaque. And I know Alan has several of his staff members here.
Well, we're just very pleased for the recognition. We don't really feel like we deserve it. We are part of this community, and we want to do the right thing for the community. But I do want to do one thing. I would like to give the opportunity for all the health plan staff that have come out today in support of this to stand, just so that the council can see that we have great representation. There's about... The health plan has about 400 employees that live, work, and play right here in Temple, so we are a substantial part of the community, and we're very grateful to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. I feel like I owe all of you a copay. So.
Thank you, Mayor.
Now is the time for public comment. Citizens who desire to address the council on any matter may sign up to do so prior to this meeting. Public comments will be received during this portion of the meeting. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. No discussion or final action will be taken by the City Council. Mr. C.J. Grisham.
Happy New Year, Mr. Mayor and City Council. In December, Daniel Romero was arrested while lawfully open carrying in the town of Harlingen, Texas. Romero was carrying his rifle down a busy street near downtown. Harlingen is approximately the same size as Temple, with 70,000 citizens. Unlike Temple, Harlingen is located near the Mexican border and has had to deal with violent gangs, the likes of which we have not seen here. A video was released of his false arrest that painted Harlingen police in a bad light for violating Romero's gun rights when he was engaged in a completely lawful action. As you know, on March 16th, I was arrested for lawfully carrying my firearm. I was carrying my rifle in a rural area near my home. The only time I was on any sort of well-traveled road was for a brief quarter mile that it took me to cross Highway 36. A video was released of my false arrest that painted Temple police in a bad light for violating my gun rights when I was engaged in a completely lawful action. When Daniel Romero was arrested, he was charged with disorderly conduct. The Cameron County prosecutor suggested to the Harlingen chief of police that they change the charge to criminal trespass. Even though the incident occurred on a public sidewalk, the prosecutor thought he could get a conviction with a lesser charge. When I was arrested, I was charged with resisting arrest, a charge invented by Officer Steve Ermis and Tom Minix, and supported by our chief of police, Gary Smith. When it became obvious I didn't resist arrest and I couldn't be charged with any real crime, the prosecutor contacted Chief Smith's office about charging me with a lesser offense to get a conviction. Harlingen Police Chief Steve Mayer recognized that his officer acted with haste and an overly aggressive stance and told the prosecutor, no, let's not pursue any charges against Romero. Chief of Police Gary Smith decided that his police officers never make mistakes and basically went along with any charge that the prosecutor offered. Harlingen Police Chief Steve Mayer met with Romero, apologized, and personally returned his rifle to him. Temple Police Chief Gary Smith refused to answer phone calls, launched a smear campaign of lies to the media about what happened on the side of the road that day, changed the story nearly half a dozen times before shutting up to the media altogether, did everything possible to prevent the dash cam footage from getting out, refused to return my firearms, allowed his officers to lie and swear statements. I could go on and on. After the Harlingen arrest, a rally was arranged in support of Daniel Romero at the police department. Chief Mayer personally attended and spoke with the 100 or so attendees in plain clothes. No uniformed officers were tasked to oversee the event, in spite of some very hostile phone calls being made by angry Texans. He even brought us water and soda and provided the power. During the march that followed the rally, not a single officer was present. After my arrest, a rally was arranged to show me support near the police department. Chief Smith turned the city of Temple into a war zone, employing every single officer on the force, regardless of what shift they were on, bringing in the FBI, ATF, DHS, and other law enforcement personnel around the state to put as much of an intimidating police presence as possible over the event.
Mr. Grisham, your 3 minutes are about up.
All right, got 1 sentence left. He had snipers on the rooftops, cameras lining the entire march route, and the SWAT team was suited up, armed, and ready to pounce through the door during this peaceful demonstration. Chief Smith was also nowhere to be seen to show support for gun rights of the people he is tasked for protecting. And my wife will finish up my speech. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Emily Grisham.
Emily Grisham, 4365 Airport Trail. Harlingen Police Department not only admitted that there was a training deficiency on open carry, but actively invited me to assist my husband to assist in their training gun laws in Texas and how to avoid such confrontations in the future and the mentality of those of us who open carry. It was a mutually respectful training event in which the officers were able to communicate their apprehension when approaching an armed citizen in order to find a common ground that not only respected the rights of its citizens but ensured the safety of the officers and community. Temple Police Department either hasn't done such training or has kept it silent from the public in an effort to hide that they may have actually made a mistake with necessitates such training. Chief Steve Mayer is dedicated to transparency in his department. He issues pass cards to members of the local media, which gives them the ability to literally walk anywhere in the police department and begin filming or taking pictures. He tells his staff that a member of the media could walk through the door any minute, so everything they do or say should be with total honor and integrity. Chief Mayer has his sergeants and other supervisors call anyone with Harlingen officers come in contact to ensure that his officers were respectful, kind, and courteous. Even when booking suspects into the jail, a supervisor is required to interview the suspect to ensure that the arresting officer wasn't profane, abusive, heavy-handed, rude, or otherwise unprofessional in the execution of his duties. Chief Gary Smith couldn't give a rat's badonkadonk about how his officers treat the citizens of Temple unless the negative press when such actions are against the most vulnerable of society, children, is so terrible his hand is forced. The city of Temple can learn some lessons from Harlingen, Texas, and its police force. It's obvious that there is a gap between the citizens of Temple and the people that run the city of Temple and its police force. Is it common for, when there is a case such as what my husband had gone through, that part of the plea bargain is for him to leave his home county and for him to write a public apology to the city of Temple and to the arresting officer as for him to get his charges dropped. I don't think that's very common, and it shouldn't be something that should ever be presented to a family in order for charges to be dropped for something that probably he shouldn't have been arrested to begin with. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Grisham. Item number 4, receive the Temple Economic Development Commission's annual report. Mr. Lee Peterson.
Mayor Dunn, Councilman Cloud, Councilman Davis, Councilman Snyder, thank you. I appreciate it.
What did you?
Yeah, they have. That was going to be a joke, but it wasn't that funny, was it? I often wonder why I'm here to present to y'all. You know more about us perhaps than we know ourselves, but we always appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Tracy. David, Tracy, Jonathan, Lacey, other city staff folks. I think we have several board members in the audience. Mayor Dunn, Councilman Snyder, David, Steve Wright, will you stand, please? Is there anybody else here? That may be the... Greg, you're not on our board, are you? Okay.
Keela?
Wanted to check.
John is here. Is he on the board still? Oh, he's not.
Excuse me?
John?
No,
No.
John served his 2 terms and has moved on to bigger and better things. TEDC is measured by the increase in sales tax, the increase in property value, and jobs. 2013 was an exceptionally good year for us. As I begin presentations, I always mention that economic development is a team sport. TEDC by itself could do very little. Because of the city and the county, private sector partners, we are able to not only do economic development, but also get projects finished. We appreciate everyone's help. I have the pleasure tonight to introduce to you the best economic development staff in the state of Texas and perhaps the United States. I'd like to introduce Mr. Charlie Ayers, our Vice President of Business Development. Charlie, your legs broke, stand up. Charlie Ayers.
Sorry, I got a bone in them.
Elizabeth Carlton, our Director of Marketing. Bridget Hines. Bridget is Project Director and Director of Research. Karen Yonke, our Operations Director, is still over at the office trying to lock up, so she's not here. We have a tremendous staff that works for you every day to try and grow this economy. All right. What happens if it's not green? I have a lot of fun with this later in the program.
There you go.
I hope you can see the slides. Some of our key industries: advanced manufacturing, distribution and logistics, health and life sciences, aviation maintenance and repair, and data management and back office. We have been fortunate the last 2 years to have 2 tremendous projects that have allowed us to grow our economy tremendously. This year, Don Man Pump Supply was a new recruitment to Temple. They'll do about a $25 million project in Enterprise Park, a 45,000 square foot manufacturing warehouse and distribution center. The company does a variety of things in the oil field industry, and we're extremely pleased to have them at Temple. And the project that has excited everyone in Temple more than anything we know about, Buc-ee's Travel Center. Buc-ee's Travel Center will build a $16 million travel center at the Loop and I-30 at the North Loop and I-35. I contacted Beaver today to see when construction would start. The answer was they're working with TxDOT and as soon as possible in 2014. We spend a tremendous amount of our time, effort, and money on retention of existing industry. It is tremendously important to us. Last year, we were fortunate enough to do a project called Panda Temple Power 1, a $758 million gas-fired power generation facility. This year, we have phase 2 of that project. We are extremely happy to have that project in Temple. Phase 1 will begin operation, we believe, August of 2014. Phase 2 just a year later. Company that's headquartered in East Texas, Tri-Supply, is a distribution company to lots of construction companies and private citizens. They're going to build a new 100,000 square foot building at the corner of Range Road in the Loop. Will be manufacturing, distribution, and retail. Our friends at Premier Cinema are in the process of constructing a new IMAX theater, which will be in the mall. We are hoping that the IMAX will bring more folks out to the mall, and we'll see more use of that facility. And Fikes Wholesale, a local Temple company, will build a 19,000 square foot new office building for their Cord Financial Group at Airport Park out on Research Parkway and Centerpoint Parkway. So those are the projects that we have brought to you for this year. We also, I went too fast, I'm sorry. We also spend a lot of time working with our local industry by having very close networking contact with those folks, taking the CEOs to lunch, visiting with them about what's good in Temple, what is not good in Temple. We have face-to-face visits with those companies on a yearly basis to try and find out what's working well for them and what's not. About 80% of the new jobs that are created inside your local industry, so it's extremely important we keep working with those folks. We have a little luncheon where we invite our existing industry. We present some awards this year. Our expansion project of the year was Johnson Brothers Ford. Excellence in workforce was Reynolds Consumer Products, and our corporate partner of the year was Wilson Come on now. We continually try to recruit people to Temple, Texas to do business. And it's almost a ballet as you walk through that, because our contact with those people has to be during the time that they are thinking about making this expansion. And so a tremendous amount of our time, effort, and work is done trying to find companies that are looking for an expansion site. And as we have done that over the last 9 or 10 years, we've kept track of where those leads have come from, because it's very important to us that we're spending our money in places that actually give us some benefit. So if you look at the diagram, about 53% of the projects that we deal with come from outreach that we've done out of our office. There are two 12%. One is the governor's office. The other is from a group we call site selectors who actually locate companies. And the third is 18%, which are local expansions in Temple. And 2% we call cold calls, which are people that for some reason may walk into our office. Perhaps Kim Fouts sends them over there because they've come to the city and talking about doing something, and she sends them to us, and we work very hard to try to make them work here. One of the things that we've also done, and I don't know if you can read that or not, but we did renew our contract with Buxton, a retail development firm, to continue to try and grow our retail business in Temple. Lots of new things out in the world. Something called social media. I think we are attached to every one of those social media possibilities. The staff keeps tweeting and Facebooking and doing a variety of things, and you can see the numbers over there that are occurring. It's simply something you have to do in this day and age. We do a little bit of advertising. A lot of that's local, so people try and find us. I know all of you sitting in this room don't know it, but the reality is, if you walk outside of this town, most people don't know where Temple, Texas is. They don't know who we are. And they may have driven from San Antonio to Dallas their entire life, but they don't know where Temple is. And I'm not kidding you. It's a true fact. They do not know where we are. And so one of our biggest jobs is to try to convince people where we are, because we are in a great place. Website is really, at this point in life, perhaps one of the very most important things in economic development. Very often a site selector or a company will go to our website, pull numbers off that website, find out who we are and what we do, and get us down to the short list before they ever talk to us. As you all kind of know, this economic development business is somewhat confidential, and there are lots of reasons for that. And the reasons are they may not want their employees to know what's going on. They may not want other companies to know what's going on. And so it's not a matter of trying to not tell people things. It's a matter of business that they can't let that out. And so the more information they can generate on their own without talking to us, the better they like it. So we had 41,000 page views last year. We had 15,500 visitors to our website and 12,070 unique visitors. And a unique visitor is somebody that comes back again within a certain amount of time. We have a great business climate in Texas. Our most important statistic is we have 0 corporate income tax and personal income tax, and that's very important. We have an 8.25% sales tax. We have a $2.53 per hundred in property tax. Is that right, Tracy? Did I say that right? Thank you. Very often get that wrong. The only problem we have with our property taxes, it's about twice as high as the tax in California. As you know, there's something called Proposition 1 in California that doesn't allow property tax to go up, so their property taxes stayed kind of constant. They just developed a whole lot of other taxes to make up for that. And so making sure that you look at all taxes and not just one portion of the tax bill is extremely important as we try to recruit companies. 2010 and 11, our sales tax was kind of stagnant. You can see in 2012 and 13 it has begun to move up, and that always makes Tracy Bernard happy. John Keelan and others have started to build a few more homes. We have 531 home building permits in 2013. Did I miss the unemployment rate? I did. If you look at the far left corner of the graph is unemployment, and if you look at the bottom, you perhaps can't read that, but the bottom green, lime green, is Temple. We continually stay below the state, the metropolitan statistical area, and the nation in unemployment rate. We try to provide jobs for people who live here. We are now getting down to the point where our unemployment rate is getting in that 5 area, which people say everybody who really wants to work is working. And so you're going to hear a lot more in the next year about job training programs and other things, because we do not necessarily have all the skills in place for people to do the jobs that are available today. One of the things in conjunction with the Chamber of Commerce that we put together was a career expo where we had 1,500 8th grade students. And when you get down to the 8th grade, you're getting down to the point where you're really getting to the point where if you can get those people to look at a career in the 8th grade, they may actually do something the rest of their educational life. We had over 30 local companies participate in that, and both the 8th graders and the local companies were very, very excited about what occurred and the interaction, and perhaps some of the young people will know there are actually jobs here that they can do. And perhaps we'll actually have an opportunity to get the training in place so they can get a job. Lots of talk about jobs and numbers and what's a living wage and all those kind of things. The thing you need to understand is if you're going to have a good job with a living wage, you're probably going to have some education. It generally doesn't happen when you step out of high school. So the top bachelor's degree occupations today are software developers, medical health and service managers, logisticians, it takes me a little while to say that, logisticians, network and computer systems administrators, teachers and instructors. And as you all know, that's a 4-year degree to get there. And some of those software developers have 6 because they have a master's. So education goes along with lots of those good jobs. The top certified occupations, and these are occupations that you can gain a certification at a 2-year school or what we used to call a vocational school, licensed practical and licensed vocational nurses, heating, air conditioning, refrigerator mechanics, medical records, health info technicians, dental assistants, automotive service technicians, and mechanics. So you can't just get out of high school and become a mechanic today. You're probably going to have to go to school and take some extra education to get there. We continue to grow the job opportunities. In 2002, Temple Belton had 73,800 jobs. In 2012, they had 87,778 jobs. And our predictions are that in 2022, we will have almost 100,000 jobs in the Temple Belton area. So we need to continue to educate our workforce. We need to continue to provide training for those people to get those good jobs. As I give this presentation, I say this may be the most important slide that I put up. So if you look at the state of Texas and the communities around it and the cost of living at those communities, you will see that Temple is considerably less. 86.3% of 100%. 100% is what the average is nationwide. And the reason that is so incredibly important is because it allows the people who live here to have a better quality of life. You can buy a home, you can buy a car, you can send your kids to school, you can do all the kind of things that are associated with the American dream. I'm not exactly certain how we keep that number. That doesn't work on there anyway. but we need to make sure that we try to keep our costs here as low as possible. If you look at the next slide, it talks about average wage. The metropolitan statistical area, which includes all of Bell County, the average wage is $50,100. The average wage in Temple is $54,300. The average wage in Texas is $58,200, and we need to get closer to that average wage in Texas. Actually, we need to be more than that average wage in Texas, and we continue to try and build on those wage rates on a consistent basis. As I started this presentation, I talked about partners. Many of them are listed for you. The City of Temple and all the staff members at the City of Temple, Bell County, Temple Reinvestment Zone, the Temple Industrial Foundation, the Temple Health and Bioscience District, Temple College, Temple Independent School District, Belton Independent School District, Temple Chamber, Central Texas Workforce, and the Entrepreneur Center of Texas are some of the public sector entities, along with lots of private. Our board and our staff, we had a wonderful year in 2013. I will stand for any questions, and we will try to have a good year in 2014.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Council, any questions? Thanks for all the work you do. Folks, thanks for being here this evening. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items listed under this section are considered to be routine by the City Council and may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired by the council, any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any council member and will be considered separately. Council, this is item 5A through 5M. Are there any items that you wish to remove for separate consideration or discussion? Item D. Item 5D. I'll entertain a motion for consent agenda item 5A through 5M minus 5D.
For approval.
Second. Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Clallam.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider.
Aye.
Mayor Dunn.
Aye. Item 5D, consider adopting a resolution authorizing a construction contract with R.T. Schneider Construction Company of Belton for construction services required for the reconstruction and widening of South Pea Ridge Road from Tarver Road to Hogan Road in the amount of $481,047.25. And this was just pulled for voting purposes. And I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve item 5D, the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Clallam.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider.
Abstain.
Mayor Dunn.
Aye. On the regular agenda, item 6, the second reading and a public hearing. Consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a zoning change from agricultural district to single-family 3 on 54.097 acres and from agricultural district to office 2 district on 2.315 acres, being part of the Baldwin-Robertson Survey, abstract number 17, Bell County, Texas, located along the north side of Prairie View Road, east of North Pea Ridge Road. Ms. Larley.
Yes, good evening, Council. And on the screen, I have a little picture of the property. It is on Prairie View Road that we're looking at where the property is. And as you stated in the item description, it is a rezoning from ag to single-family 3 and office 2. And the land use and character map recommends agricultural in rural classification. The future extension of Westfield Boulevard bisects the property at the requested Office 2 district area. And so this is a map of the area, and the site is in the yellow hatching, and this basically shows the division between the requested single-family 3 district and the Office 2. The Office 2 is in this little area with the blue box around it. The rest of the area would be for the single-family 3. And this dashed green line is where the proposed Westfield Boulevard bisects the property to go north towards Airport Road. And as you can see, this is along Prairie View Road. The surrounding properties to the north is agricultural land and undeveloped land. To the east along Prairie View Road is agricultural land and rural residential. To the south, we have Prairie View Road is fairly long in this area. We have agricultural land in rural residential with the Belton Independent School District. This picture right here is actually a site of the BISD site. And then this is just some of the rural residential area going towards Pea Ridge Road. To the west, we have agricultural land and undeveloped land. Within the requested single-family 3 district, some of the allowed uses are within the residential category are single-family detached dwelling, industrialized housing, and then places of worship and fire station. That's just a sample of some of the uses that are allowed. Some of the prohibited uses within the requested single-family 3 are single-family attached dwellings, patio homes, apartments, duplexes, townhouses, and all industrial uses, except for recycling collection locations. With development standards, the dimensional standards for single-family 3 are as follows. The minimum lot size for a single-family 3 is 4,000 square feet with a minimum lot width of 40 feet with a minimum lot depth of 100 feet with the front yard setback of 15 feet and with a 5-foot side yard setback for interior lots and a side yard setback for corner lots with a 15-foot setback, and then for rear yard setbacks, that's 10 feet. Within the requested Office 2 district, the sample of the allowed uses are a mix of residential and non-residential uses. Residential uses allowed within the Office 2 district are single-family detached dwelling, single-family attached dwelling, townhouses, duplexes, and triplexes. And also within the non-residential uses are offices, home for the aged, hospitals, a hotel or motel, and restaurants. Uses prohibited within the requested Office 2 district are townhouses, building material sales, welding or machine shop, contractor storage or equipment yard, mini storage warehouses, and alcohol beverage sales for off-premise consumption in a beer and wine store or package store. Okay, for our land use and character map, it's actually recommended for agricultural rural uses along this area. To the south is suburban residential. The map I have on the screen is actually showing the roadway classifications. The green is actually showing Prairie View Road as a minor arterial, and then North Pea Ridge Road is classified as a collector. And then, as I pointed out earlier, the green dashed line is a proposed Westfield Boulevard extension. And there are utilities within the area. We show on the surrounding the property are various water lines, 12-inch water lines, 8-inch water lines. There are no sewer lines shown in this area, but with the expansion of Westfield Boulevard, that will be bringing sewer lines from the south. So we sent out 9 notices to surrounding property owners within 200 feet of the site. We received 4 responses back in agreement, and those are shown with the green A's, and we did not receive any responses back in disagreement of this request. Staff's recommendation is for approval of the requested rezoning to single-family 3 district for the following reasons, and that is based on staff's direction from City Council at the November 21st, 2013 workshop regarding single-family developments in areas such as this with agricultural rural classifications. From that direction, staff anticipates future changes to the future land use and character map for suburban residential uses in this area that would bring the applicant's request into compliance with the anticipated development in this area. Also, the request complies with the thoroughfare plan. Although at this time Prairie View Road is not built to its designated minor arterial capacity, and the projected Westfield Boulevard arterial is not built yet, both roads are in the design phase for improvements. Also, public facilities are partially available, as I mentioned. The city map shows water line connections, but it does not show sewer line connections at this time, but the sewer services would be included with future improvements for Westfield Boulevard extension in this area. And in regards to the Office 2 district, staff is recommending approval based on the same information that I mentioned for the single-family 3. We anticipate changes to the future land use map for suburban commercial, and that would bring the applicant's request in compliance. The request also complies with the Thurford plan, and as I stated, it has water services to the area, and sewer services are expected with the expansion of the extension of the Westfield Boulevard. And let's see. So at the December 3rd, 2013 meeting for the Planning and Zoning Commission, they voted 6-0 to recommend approval of a rezoning from agricultural district to single-family 3 district and Office 2 district. Chair Sears and former Commissioner Magana were absent at that meeting. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Thank you, Ms. Larley. Council, any questions? At this time, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Yes, I'm John Keela. I represent the landowner in this item. I reside at 11122 White Rock Drive, Temple, Texas. A couple thoughts. We would like your favorable vote on this, Mayor and Council. Prime example of development following public infrastructure. This property was bought by an investor group that I'm representing, and as you know, in the presentation it said Westfield Boulevard's under design. It's currently under construction. Should be done within a 6-8 month period, so this project will follow that arterial that will come to the property. I'm also working with various landowners in that area to continue to try to get right-of-way for the city so that we can expand that arterial all the way out to airport. Would not be surprised if development does not follow that. As you put infrastructure underground, development will follow it. So both sewer line, water, and the arterial is sitting at the front door of this project. If I could, I'd also request that, can you go back to the acceptable uses, please?
Yes. For which?
Accepted.
Oh, okay.
Is townhomes accepted allowed? Is there 2 pages on that?
There's in the Office 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are allowed uses. Can you go to the prohibited slide?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's really important to us because it is a voted item.
Yes. Townhouses are.
It's on prohibited. You know, just as a point of order, because I don't want to have to come back here in the future, it is allowed, but it's shown as a prohibited here. So as it's voted, I would like at least to make note of that they are allowable uses, not prohibited, and if we could strike it off of
Okay,
the
sure. Yeah.
prohibited, because I wouldn't want to have to fight that in the future. So just a little point that is real important when you're getting a voted item, that it does state that, because it's showing a little conflict there. Other than that, we would, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Keeler.
Thank
Council.
you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? There being no further comments, I will declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the second, on the first, second reading of this ordinance.
Motion for approval. Second.
A motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Quell.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider. Mayor Dunn.
Aye. Item number 7. First reading in a public hearing, consider adopting an ordinance authorizing an amendment to Ordinance 2010-4413, Temple Unified Development Code, Article 3, to amend notification requirements, Article 4, to amend dimensional standards, Article 5 to add industrial uses, Article 6 to amend TMED landscaping requirements, Article 6 to amend I-35 overlay window requirements, Article 6 to amend the 1st and 3rd Street overlay district, and Article 7 to amend off-street parking requirements. Mr. Chandler.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just to give you a little bit of background to start off with regarding this set of 7 amendments, we as staff, actually my predecessors, I ought to be clear, met with stakeholders including the Temple Area Builders Association as well as TEDC. The amendments would provide conformance to state law, corrections, clarification, and improvement to certain sections of the UDC. And so to start with number 1, the item that would conform to state law would be to add a requirement for public hearing notification of zoning district map amendments to be sent to the school district for residential zone changes in accordance with House Bill 674, and then to go through the other more clarification type amendments. Number 2 would be to correct an error on max building height for Office 1 zoning. 3 would be reorganize industrial uses and add industrial uses to the use table. 4 would be to clarify and add options for TMED landscape requirements. 5 would be to eliminate window requirements for the rear of buildings within the I-35 overlay. 6 would be to add a missing section of the 1st and 3rd overlay. And then finally, to clarify off-street parking requirements to require parking within 150 feet. And so just to give a little bit more background on the school district notice, as mentioned before, this is to conform with House Bill 674, which requires mailed notification to school districts of public hearing for zoning changes affecting residential or multifamily zoning. Number 2 is related to dimensional standards related to Article 4 of the UDC to correct an error that is currently showing a max height of 45 stories in the O1 district. And so this is really just to correct that, to reflect the 3 stories that was in the code prior to adoption of the Unified Development Code. Number 3 is related to industrial uses. Specifically, it's to add the following uses to the permitted uses table: light manufacturing and distribution center. Also, it includes reorganizing uses under the light manufacturing heading for the following uses that are very specific, let's just put it that way, and so these would be addressed under the light manufacturing definition: milk depot, dairy or ice cream plant being 1, bottling plant being 2, and clothing or similar light manufacturing is number 3, as it's currently listed in our permitted uses table. Some industrial uses are currently listed under a commercial heading as well, and so the proposal is to reorganize those that are more industrial in nature under the appropriate heading, including laboratory manufacturing, storage warehouse, wholesale storage and sales, and then finally laboratory, medical, dental, scientific, or research. Also, the amendments include one related to the TMED overlay, which would provide clarification and additional options for landscaping for public frontage types A, B, C, and D. Also would allow for river rock to be used. And included in the additional landscaping options are really providing a little more flexibility of allowing the following drought-tolerant shrubs and ground cover: dwarf yaupon holly, red yucca, purple winter creeper, and Mexican feathergrass. Amendment number 5, addressing the I-35 corridor overlay window requirement. The current I-35 overlay standards require a minimum of 40% of the rear side of a building to be windows. So the proposed amendment would eliminate that requirement within the corridor. Item number 6, related to the 1st and 3rd overlay. is to essentially add the section of the 3rd Street corridor between Adams Avenue and Houston Avenue, and the added section would be classified as frontage type A, so essentially addressing different types of landscaping and streetscape requirements, as well as sidewalk and requirements and green strip as well. This section was, was intentionally, I should say, left out when the overlay was created. However, further review found that type A frontage type was suitable for the section. And so here you can see the corridor, the blue representing frontage type C, B representing type B, and then the kind of cream color is A, and then the area circled representing the new addition to that corridor. And of course, the gap in between is really the southern part of downtown and really has a different type of character, which is why it was not included. And then finally, the last amendment is related to off-street parking, which would essentially move the requirement from Article 11, the definitions, to Article 7 of the UDC. And the proposed amendment would restore language left out in the transition to the UDC and clarifies current off-street parking requirements within 150 feet. Staff recommends approval of the proposed amendments for the following reasons: to conform to state law, to correct errors in the code, to provide additional flexibility, and to clarify the code. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Council, any questions for Mr. Chandler? All right. Thank you very much. This time I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. There being no comments, I will declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first reading of this ordinance.
Motion for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider. Mayor Dunn.
Aye. Item 8, first reading and a public hearing. Consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a zoning change from two-family district to PD Office 1 on a portion of Lot 1 and a portion of Lot 3, Block E, Bentley Bellevue Addition, addressed as 2003 West Avenue H. Ms. Lyerly.
Okay. And I have a zoning map on the screen. It's pretty busy. It's a color-coded zoning map, but the actual request for tonight is with the yellow boundary here, and it actually, a portion of it is already zoned Office 1 district, but they're asking for the whole thing to be a planned development Office 1. This portion right here is two-family. This is from the site. This is a picture of the site from Avenue 8. In the background, the applicant is proposing a 1,400 square foot general medical clinic. The site is a .496 acres and is currently zoned two-family for that area that I mentioned that is not part of the existing Office 2. The two existing single-family homes will be renovated and converted into medical offices. No additional structures or building additions will be built. The parking lot will be expanded to provide 7 parking spaces per UDC Section 7.5. This is a picture of the site plan, and the red rectangle is the only portion that the plan development is regarding. This is a portion of the parking lot that will be expanded for those 7 spaces. All the other structures on the property are existing, and basically, no, as I stated, no building additions, just basic renovations inside. And it's another picture of the subject property. This is another view of the property. And then this is to the south. This is single-family use, which is in the two-family zoning district as well. To the east is church use, which is also zoned two-family zoning. And then to the north are office uses, and that is zoned general retail. And then to the west is some more single-family uses with the same two-family zoning district. For the future land use, it is designated as Neighborhood Conservation District, and the Neighborhood Conservation District is designed to maintain the neighborhood character of the area. Non-residential uses are allowed if compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. The character is maintained as no buildings are being constructed for this request, and non-residential uses are in the surrounding area and corridor. The proposed general medical clinic is a low-intensity use and compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. The thoroughfare plan and infrastructure. Avenue H is classified as a major arterial and is more appropriate for non-residential uses than residential. 39th Street is classified as a local street, and a 6-inch water line is available along Avenue H. A 2-inch water line is available along 39th Street, and an 8-inch sanitary sewer line is available along Avenue H. And also a 6-inch sanitary sewer is available at the rear of the property. The Trails and Master Plan in this area, the property currently has a 4-foot sidewalk in place along Avenue H, and 6-foot wide sidewalks are required according to the plan, but since the applicant is only required he's only required to widen the sidewalk to 6 feet if the renovations are over 50% of the appraised value of the property, and that's according to UDC Section 7.2. So that will be looked at if approved, and when he comes through for a building permit, then staff will be looking at that to make sure that that doesn't get triggered for the sidewalk. Development regulations would be subject to all standards in UDC Section 7 unless identified in the ordinance for this PD. We sent out 13 property owners notices that were mailed within 200 feet, and 2 sent back notices in agreement, and we had 1 that was sent back in disagreement. The 2 green A's are the ones that were sent back in agreement, and then we have the denial at the corner of the South 41st Street and West Avenue H. And we did receive 1 notice back that was undeliverable. So staff is recommending approval of the rezoning from 2-family to Plan Development Office 1 for the following reasons. The request is compatible with the future land use and character map. The request complies with thoroughfare plan. Public facilities are available to serve the property, and the request complies with the Temple Trails Master Plan, and if approved, staff recommends the site plan be an exhibit to the ordinance. At its December 3rd, 2013 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 6-0 in accordance with staff to recommend approval of the proposed rezoning from 2-family district to Plan Development Office 1. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those for you.
Thank you, Ms. Larley. Council, any questions? This time, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. There being no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first reading of this ordinance.
Motion to approve item 8.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider.
Aye.
Mayor Dunn.
Aye. Item 9, first reading and a public hearing. Consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a zoning change from agricultural district to 2-family district, being part of the Nancy Chance Survey, abstract number 5, Bell County, Texas, located on the west side of Old Waco Road and the east side of South Pea Ridge Road, east of Westwood Estates. And the applicant has asked that this be tabled, but may I ask you a question? Since I've called for a public hearing, do I have to open that, or? At this time, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. I'll declare the public hearing closed, and we do not need to take action on this item at this time. Item 10, first reading in a public hearing. Consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a zoning change from agricultural district to neighborhood service on .982 acres situated in the Nancy Chance Survey, Abstract 5, City of Temple, Bell County, Texas, located at 6040 West Adams Avenue. Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Council. Again, as you mentioned, this is a requested rezoning from agricultural to neighborhood services. The property is located on the north side of West Adams and east of Beaver Loop Road. This is addressed as 6040 West Adams Avenue. The City of Temple Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Plan identifies the property as auto-urban residential. There is a 4 and a 6-inch water lines available in West Adams Avenue to the property, and an 18-inch sewer line that's also available on the south side of West Adams Avenue. Prior activity on this property was included 2 rezoning requests from agriculture to neighborhood services, both in 2001 and 2002. There was strong neighborhood opposition to the neighborhood services, due in part to the need for enhanced buffer, concerns over increased traffic, the effect on pedestrian safety on the trail, property devaluation, intrusive nature of nighttime businesses, and the potential sale of alcoholic beverages through a CUP process within the neighborhood services zoning. Staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission at that time recommended for a planned development 01, and ultimately that request was withdrawn by the applicant before going to the City Council for a first reading of that ordinance. Just some photographs of the subject property. Currently it's undeveloped. This is looking north, and residential property is on the north end of this property. Just some photographs of the neighborhood. This is within the Casburg subdivision and currently has SF1 zoning in place. Looking to the south, there are scattered single-family uses. These properties are on acreage. Both have urban estates and general agriculture as their current zoning. To the west, there's existing service and office uses. The neighborhood services zoning is in place for these properties. And to the east is undeveloped, currently in place is 01 and agricultural zoning. Again, the property is identified in the future land use map as within the auto-urban residential district. This is intended for smaller single-family lot sizes that are typically available in the single-family and single-family attached zoning districts, using 7,500 square foot lots as the baseline size. The request to the neighborhood services zoning does not comply with the future land use plan. The current zoning, again, as I mentioned earlier, there's 01 in place. This is the subject property. There's neighborhood services and neighborhood services that is developed. There, to the south, again, is the urban estates and the general agriculture. Neighborhood services allowed uses include for residential, single-family, attached, and detached, industrial housing, family or group home. Non-residential uses would include a child daycare center, a food or beverage sales without the fuel sales, and a variety of retail and service uses. Prohibited uses include manufactured homes, a discount or department store, a furniture or appliance service store, and all commercial or industrial uses except those that are allowed through a conditional use permit process. Residential development for the development standards for the neighborhood services include a front yard setback of 15 feet, a side yard setback of 10 foot, both for the interior and the corner. There is no rear yard setback except as provided for where a non-residential use is adjacent to a residential use. That is a 10-foot setback. And that was per UDC section 4.4.4.F3. Also, residential access drive is prohibited onto an Ontario street. The UDC currently has general buffering and screening. These include hedges at 6-foot height and spaced on 36-inch centers. There are additional buffering standards for a solid masonry wood or precast concrete fence of 6 to 8 feet. Refuse containers would be located in the rear or side of the property and also screened from view. Outdoor storage is permitted in the neighborhood services zoning district, principally behind the principal building and again screened from view. In terms of notification, staff sent out 15 notices within the 200-foot buffer. One letter was received in agreement. There was 9 received in disagreement. One was undeliverable, and one came back as unspecified. There were also a number of responses that came from outside the 200-foot buffer. The opposition does trigger the supermajority requirement for 3/4 vote requirement for City Council. And again, it triggered about 23% of the land area within the buffer was in opposition. Staff recommends disapproval of the rezoning request from Ag to Neighborhood Services based on that the request does not comply with the future land use plan, land use map, which identifies this area as auto-urban residential, and due in part to the compatibility of some neighborhood service uses with the proximity of the neighborhood and existing neighborhood services in the immediate area have developed with O1 uses. Additionally, per UDC Section 4.3.16, the neighborhood services should be located convenient to residential areas in locations such as the corner of a local street or collector that serves the neighborhood. At this December 3rd, 2013 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 5-1 in accordance with the applicant's request to approve ZFY 14-9. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Council, any questions? Mr. Baker? This time I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. And I know that there are several people wishing to speak on this, and if you could keep your comments to about 3 minutes.
Yes, I'll do that. My name is Andrew Eller. I live at 6002 Wildcat Drive. I was one of the ones who did return the denial of the request, and that's what I'm here for. I'm requesting that you put forth the denial of the request from agriculture to neighborhood services tonight. The reason why, and the staff has done a great job outlining all of the issues. There are a few other pieces that are missing. One of them is the traffic in the area. There's a substantial amount of traffic going out West Adams, 2305. There's already been several presentations tonight on changes in that area out west, and that just adds traffic to the area. It is very difficult to get out of Beaver Loop as it is now during rush hour. Sometimes when you're getting off, coming home in the evening, you think someone's going to run over you because the speed limit is 50 miles an hour in that area. There are 2 cut-ins available for all 3 pieces of property that are there together. However, they're so close to the bridge, I don't believe people would use those because it would be hard for them to get out, so they would go to the corner, which would be up at Beaver, and then try to exit at Beaver. So that is a major issue. The staff looking at all the issues of the Unified Development Code, the comprehensive plan, the land use, the thoroughfare plans, none of that really, all of that basically says that neighborhood services is not a good fit for that property. You look at single-family housing behind it. There was just talk about putting refuse containers back against it, so now you're back against SF1 housing with refuse containers. The more appropriate zoning would be an Office 1, such as the property to the west already. It would be a little bit easier, a little bit less traffic, maybe not as unfit for the neighborhood or unfit for the area. And also the trail that goes through there. We have a great park system, great trail system. We run a lot of 5Ks out that way, 10Ks, half marathons. I personally have run on that trail many times, and it has gotten so bad with traffic crossing that trail with a lot of neighborhood services and commercial buildings going in. It's very difficult to run and stay at a steady pace without somebody trying to cut you off. And oftentimes during some of these events, I have seen people almost hit by cars trying to exit across that trail. So it's really a bad plan to go with the neighborhood services. We're willing to compromise. The Office 1 is good, go with what the staff has said, and we believe that's really the better way to go. So I appreciate your time and consideration for that.
Thank you.
My name is Jeff Lawyer. I live at 6001 Wildcat Drive. And Andy came up here and talked to you all about all the eloquent stuff, and I just want to talk to you all about agendas. Our neighborhood agenda is we own houses that most of us plan to retire in, and we'll probably live in there. It's the last house we'll ever own. So we want our neighborhood to be protected, and we're very transparent about what we want. We know that that area is going to be developed. We know that the property value is just going to go up. Adams is going to be the next 31st Street. We're well aware of that. We just want the protection for our neighborhood. Now, that's our agenda. Mrs. Fettig, her agenda is she wants to sell that property, and we understand that. She's an investor. She bought it. But she stated at Planning and Zoning that she had no idea what the person that was going to buy that property from her wanted to put on it. And so that worries us. She needs to sell it. She needs to get it rezoned to neighborhood services, but no idea what to put there. I live at 6001 right next to that thing, and I don't want a garbage can sitting right outside my fence. We have a third agenda here. Steve Wright. He's a developer. He's a builder. Steve Wright took it on himself to call members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, asking them to vote for neighborhood services. And then he came and sat with Mrs. Fettig at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to make sure that his message was delivered against the wishes of staff. So we have three different agendas here. We have one that's totally transparent, and we have two that aren't. And so we're worried. We don't know what's going on. That's our property for the rest of our lives. That's our neighborhood. And because they won't be transparent, we have to turn to you and ask you to protect us right now. And that's what we're here doing. Thank you.
Hi, my name is John Wilson. I live at 302 Beaver Loop, and also want to put forth my concerns of Beaver Loop in our neighborhood as well. Traffic, as Andy had already mentioned, is already tremendously increased. Trying to go to work in the mornings and come back in the evenings is difficult. I was already up here representing the health plan. I live my backyard bumps into the old property of the West Campus. And I might as well start going to work through the woods because it's quicker for me sometimes probably. But concern is that traffic is continuing to grow just because of the 30 on Highway 36, continuing to have in the loop construction. I feel like that's really increasing the volume of traffic on 2305. And so this is neighborhood services. We'll continue to use Beaver Loop possibly as a thoroughfare of getting to services. Office 1 definitely makes more sense if we were to rezone it. So anyway, I just ask for you as well to go with the staff recommendations of disapproving that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Mayor Dunn and Council, my name is Carrie Klein, and I live at 106 Beaver Loop. I, too, oppose the change to neighborhood services and would request that you would consider all of the items that have been presented by the neighborhood members here. There have been 3 prior attempts to change the zoning to neighborhood service, which have been denied because it does not truly fit the definitions in the Unified Development Code for neighborhood services. And so I would just ask you to consider what the property owners there are looking to get, which is to maintain their homes and not have their homes backed up to refuse containers and have additional traffic that traffic is already a huge problem, especially in the mornings and the evenings, entering and exiting Beaver Loop there. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Council members, Mr. Mayor, my name is Tommy Kahn, and I live at 101 Beaver Loop. And I'm just going to echo everything that the previous people have said. Traffic is tremendous. As you can see, my husband and I are seasoned people. We retired here in Temple. We retired here because we love Temple. But the problem of traffic and a possible zoning to neighborhood services is not something that we look forward to. 01 would be better, because I really don't think that our neighborhood fits for neighborhood services. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Mayor, Councilman, my name is Juanita Michelle Fettig, and I live at 3506 Hannibal Trail here in Temple. As the previous people that have been up here, I too am a property owner, and the concern that they have, I hear that, and I have concerns as well for my property. As you see here, we're trying to change from ag to neighborhood service, which is consistent with everything surrounding. To the west, across the street, you have general retail, which is neighborhood service is much softer than general retail. As far as the traffic, there is traffic. There's a lot of traffic on that area. It is going to be the next 31st Street, but the traffic is already there. So that was one point I'd like to say. Whenever the other time that there was a request for a zone change, my husband and I did not own that property at the time. So that was back in 2001 and 2, I believe, and we've owned it since 2005. Did you want to change the next one? Okay, as far as the future land use map there, understanding that is, let's see, it's a guideline for the staff to follow and recommendations, but I contend that in the map, the case does not adequately identify non-residential uses that are currently developed along Adams Avenue, frontage nearby and the adjacent to our property. Probably because these are relatively small in size. Okay, and as far as the legend from the city thoroughfare plan, the property fronts along Adams Avenue. Adams Avenue is defined as a major arterial. Major arterial is only one level below expressway, and it is 2 layers above collector. Adams Avenue carries up to 23,000 vehicles per day according to TxDOT 2010 traffic count map. This kind of traffic volume on a major arterial usually is more compatible with general retail or commercial zoning, and we're not asking for commercial or retail. We're just asking for a much softer neighborhood service. And I would like to point out that the word neighborhood using as in the zoning description. As far as the access points to the property, TxDOT has granted 2 access points from Adams, at the property lines. And then the last one again, please. Okay. And once again, I would just like to say that the request for neighborhood service is consistent with what is surrounding us at this point.
Thank you, Ms. Fettig.
Thank you very much.
Is it all right if I speak again? Because I do, can you put that back up there? I do take a little bit of difference with this. Although those are neighborhood services, anybody who's been out West Adams happens to know that there are 3 offices there. There's an insurance office, there's a chiropractor's office, and then it's an attorney's office. So those are not actually, those could have been zoned Office 1 and done okay with an Office 1 and been put in that. If we open up the property, subject property to neighborhood services, we're opening it up to the potential for a lot of other undesirable uses backing up to a home. If an attorney's office, chiropractor's office, those kind of things were to go in there, that would be fine, but we don't know what's going in there. So to zone it as a neighborhood services would not fit with what we're trying to do to back up to the homes, like what was done with the other neighborhood services. Plus, the property, which is not shown on here, unusual, the Office 1 on the west side of the sub is Office 1. That property is Office 1. So it would be better to zone it as Office 1 and leave the others as it is. So,
Mr. Eller, how long have you lived?
I've lived there almost 20 years.
Granted, West Adams was not quite the thoroughfare when you...
No, it was 2 lanes when I moved there.
I understand. I guess my question is that piece of land at some point, I would imagine that everybody thought that it would be developed in some way.
Yeah, our thoughts for development would be, because when I purchased my property, which is actually in the corner down here, it was Office 1 next to me, and it's been zoned that way since I moved in. We figured it would be offices. And when the offices went up on the corner of the other neighborhood services, we said, yeah, that fits with the land use. I was unaware that they were neighborhood services at the time because I didn't check that far up.
And since that happened,
Yeah.
I think we have changed our ordinance to where there is actually a buffer between neighborhood services and from what it was then and what it is now, going back to 2000 or 2001.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually gotten stronger.
Okay.
And the buffer is actually stronger. The Office 1 still is a better character because neighborhood services still will allow other uses that would be totally undesirable for a neighborhood. And quite frankly, if the property is being sold and nobody's telling us what's going on there and it's zoned for neighborhood services, how do we know somebody's not going to come along and put a convenience store in there that's going to sell alcoholic beverages? How do we know somebody's not going to put something in there that's totally undesirable, whereas the office would be more desirable? There's a few things in the Office 1 that we would not like, but it's less intrusive, and it would be an excellent compromise to make that an Office 1 piece of property. Thank you.
I'm Sherry Eller, live at 6002 Wildcat Drive in Temple. We're always going to have traffic, and so I know we can't just say, because it's going to generate traffic, don't change it. She doesn't show on there the Office 1, and so if you're going to say, well, there's neighborhood services to one side, go with that. Well, there's Office 1 to one side, so just, it fits with Office 1 is one thing. The other thing is my daughter was one who was almost run over by the traffic from the cut-ins, and it's pretty dangerous. She also fell off her bike, and a policeman saw her because of every time for construction that these businesses cut into the trail, they don't ever put it back the way it's supposed to be, and the city doesn't fine them enough to make them want to, and so she fell off because it wasn't paved over right, and she busted her face and all that. A policeman saw that even and offered to take her home. So one of the things that I wanted to highlight is that with Office 1, there's not my understanding is that with Office 1, there's not a chance that alcoholic beverages will be sold. And that is a piece that's really important to me. And also usually with Office 1, they go home at 5 or 6. Whereas with neighborhood services,
there are ways with conditional use permits for them to sell alcohol and to actually have on-premises alcohol consumption. Those are some of the pieces that we want to keep away, 10 feet from our property line. That's how close it can be to our property line where they're consuming alcohol on the premises. They can have all-night, 24-hour businesses with the lights, with the crime, with the trash dumpsters and those kinds of things. So the Office 1 kind of locks out some of those things. The other thing, and you didn't put the slide up this time, some of those other uses like a mausoleum and some kind of sewage, something or another. There were some other uses that were really undesirable. Do you have that slide available, or could you let them know some of those things that we would not want next to our house as neighborhood services?
Mayor, through the conditional use permit process, things like a crematorium, a mausoleum, cemetery could be allowed in the neighborhood services with a
conditional use permit.
Yes.
At that point, a conditional use permit would have to come back to council, and if that's not a desirable place of business behind the house, and I would think a crematorium may not be.
But neither is on-site alcohol consumption, is what I'm saying.
I think on-site as well has to have a conditional use permit.
Right, that has to come back.
That will have to come back to council as well. So you'd have some protection in that.
But we have to trust that y'all wouldn't let that go through, whereas with Office 1, it's not an option. That's what I'm saying is you're asking us to trust that, right now, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted for neighborhood services when it was not a desirable thing. So now you're asking us to trust that, that wouldn't happen. You know what I'm saying? Office 1, it's just not an option. And so that's what we're wanting to protect our kids in the neighborhood.
Come in.
Can I ask the question of maybe the applicant, what the difference between Office 1 and neighborhood services? Why are you choosing neighborhood services over Office 1? Is there more options for the property and better fit for what you may sell it for? Or what's the reasoning behind that?
Ms. Fedek, would you mind going back up to the podium? I'm sorry.
I understand that neighborhood services is to the west, and they're obviously offices and not retail type situations. So I'm just kind of curious.
Okay. Well, when the applicant or the potential buyer came to me, they requested neighborhood service, and it's my understanding that there's more options to be from neighborhood service and what you can build in office. There's no, just as right now the neighborhood services that there are there, and they're right, they're not, they're office buildings, there's a lawyer and a bank, and they mentioned them, but I have no idea what is going to go in. As far as I know right now, it's just as an investment, so that's what I know right there. Across the street where it's general retail, they will not, the beauty salon, the pack and mail, and the retail bakery would not be allowed in neighborhood service. In O1, I'm sorry, in O1. That's right.
Sure.
Okay.
So pretty much all those uses that's surrounding the subject property will still fit neighborhood services, is what you're saying. So something like whether across the street, the salon, the pizza place, or whatever it is now, it would fit there as well as a office.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else wishing to speak? Okay. I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first reading of this ordinance.
Mayor, a few comments before we take them. take any motions or whatever, if I may. I understand the position of the applicant. I understand the position of the homeowners. The protection is, it's one of the things we look at in all zoning cases, and especially conditional use permits, as far as the protection of the surrounding property, and does it fit, and does it make sense? And we're faced with those questions quite often, actually, and it's hard to say does it fit or not when we're not sure what's going to be built there. I have a little bit of problem with that. It kind of leaves it open-ended. So, in my opinion, I like to see things come to a council as it gets zoned and actually know what's being built there. It helps me make that decision. We've been burnt before as to the zoning request prior to knowing what's there, and we end up with something that we didn't want in that location. Also, understand the applicant. You have a piece of property. I own a piece of property, and I'd like to sell it, and I've got these restrictions as far as selling it, and it infringes a little bit on my opportunity to do that. The request I would like to, I guess, unless anyone else has any comments, I do have a motion I would like to maybe present. I don't know if I need to maybe ask the applicant if they would even be okay to do that. We could make a motion as neighborhood services with a plan development on that, which would mean that whether it was conditional use permit, alcohol sales, any of those types of situations, they would come to the council for a decision. Anything, even an office building, it would also come back to the council at that time, and would be able to visit the site plan on that. We could potentially, make that a site plan and operational, because I guess I didn't really realize at the time we were talking in our workshop that convenience store with no gas stations could be there. So it could be open all 24 hours a day. I guess it could be as far as a convenience store. I guess I realized that earlier in our discussion in workshop. I don't know what the applicant would think about that, but it would be somewhat of a compromise. It allows everything in that area that's built now to still go in there under neighborhood services, but also has an opportunity to come back to council, and you look at the lighting, you look at the refuge containers, you look at all those different things that's laid out on a site plan, if I'm correct, and we have some opportunity to protect the neighborhood with that.
Yeah, we did talk about this in the workshop, and I just want to be clear, make sure that everybody understands that if you approve a planned development neighborhood service just by itself, any allowed use that's already allowed in a neighborhood service would be allowed.
You bet.
You would have the opportunity to look at a site plan, to look at physical characteristics of the property, et cetera.
And could we ask for a site plan and operational?
No, they're allowed to make any use of the property that would be allowed in a neighborhood service. So, but if you have concerns about the location of trash cans, or lights, or things like that, they could be addressed in a site plan. But any use would be allowed.
I could make that motion as a PD, neighborhood service PD, and we could, potentially vote on it that way. But if not, that would be my. If you're not willing to do that, I would not make any motion.
I'll reopen the public hearing so that
Okay.
hear from the applicant again.
Okay. Mayor, Councilman, I would accept the neighborhood with a planning and zoning PD as an alternative to the neighborhood service. Thank you.
However, as Mr. Graham just pointed out, by right, anything that's there, such as the convenience store, could be placed on that property. and that is not what we want to do. The alcohol is planned, is public, conditional use permits. So an alcohol being sold would be a conditional use permit, and that would come back no matter what. But remember, even if you do planned development neighborhood services, as Mr. Graham pointed out, you have to allow that by right to go on that property. And there are those uses that we do, that would just totally not fit there, that someone could by right place there. As you pointed out, Mr. Snyder, that's happened before in this city. You approve a zoning change, and somebody puts something there that we don't want there, and it's only because they can do it by right.
Thank you.
Jeff Lawyer again. I just want to make sure I understand this. So what Councilmember Snyder, you're suggesting that it go to neighborhood services where they could have a convenience store that didn't sell gas? So is that what you're saying you'd allow there?
You would allow anything in the neighborhood service, but once they determine what they're going to put there, they'll have to come back through council, through probably P&Z, with a site plan and specifically locate the building, the trash containers, the lighting, and that type of thing. And we would be able to make some determinations as far as protecting the neighborhood, as far as how the lighting is positioned and how the containers are positioned and that type of thing.
My house is one of the two houses that will be most affected by this zone change. And when I bought my house in 2001, I went down to planning and zoning, and they said, you're ag, and the property next to you is 01, and the only thing they'll ever change it to is 01. So I understand what you're saying, but I want you to understand how I feel. That you're telling me that you're going to okay a possible convenience store next to my house or a liquor store, and I understand conditional use permit, but I'm just asking you to put yourself in my house. And I've lived in that house for 13 years. I'm going to retire in 2 years, and I hope to live in that house the rest of my life. So I'm just asking you, put yourself in my house and think of what you'd have to have, or what you would like to have or not have right outside your fence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sherry Eller, 6002 Wildcat Drive in Temple. I just want to appeal to y'all that for us, this is our home, our life. Whatever happens with that property, she's going to be gone, developer's going to be gone, they're going to be gone. It's just a money thing for them. We are the ones that have to stay there and live with what's there. For us, it's not a money thing. It's our livelihoods. I mean, it's our morning, noon, and night, in the middle of the night. It's our kids, our grandkids. It's how we mow our yard. It is our whole life. It's just a financial transaction for these kind people. I understand that. It's just one more investment for them, but it's not, they don't have a stake in it emotionally. We all have a stake in it emotionally. So, sometimes you have great investments, and sometimes you have good investments. And but there are 50 people in our neighborhood that it's our whole, it's everything. I mean, that we do morning, noon, and night, and our kids. Some of us are homeschool our kids there. We're there all day and all that. And so to allow them to have 24-hour businesses, the possibility of selling alcohol, and all those kinds of things, just please don't do that to our families. I appreciate it.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak? I'll declare the public hearing closed again. We do have a motion on the table. Go ahead, Mr. Schneider.
The motion would be to go with the neighborhood services with planned development.
All right.
Can I clarify one thing just for the record? Because our ordinance was amended to, our ordinance does not require a site plan for every planned development the way it used to. If that's your intention, then you want to put that in as part of the ordinance.
And have a site plan review
By the council.
by the council.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
No, I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. Item 11, first reading and a public hearing. Consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a zoning change from agricultural district to single-family 2 district on 115.33 acres and from agricultural district to general retail district on 12.725 acres, both being a portion of 128.05 acres of land, being part of the Baldwin-Robertson Survey, Abstract 17, Bell County, Texas, located on the east side of State Highway 317, north of the FM 2483 intersection, and extending to the west side of North Pea Ridge Road.
Okay, I have on the screen, I have background pictures. This property actually stretches from North Pea Ridge Road all the way to Highway 317, which is why I have 2 pictures on the screen. The top picture is the site from State Highway 317, and then the bottom picture is the site from North Pea Ridge Road. And the subject property is surrounded by existing agricultural land and rural residential properties, as well as general retail to the southwest corner of the property along State Highway 317. The land use and character map for this area is for agricultural rural. And here's a picture of the property. As I mentioned, it stretches from North Pea Ridge Road here all the way to State Highway 317. And this dividing line here is the dividing line between the requested general retail property and the requested single-family 2 area here. And then this is just the zoning map showing the buffer area to 200 feet around the property, and it just shows, again, the designations that they're wanting to pursue: general retail in this portion, single-family 2 in this portion. The surrounding property, as you can see, is all zoned ag district, with the exception of the convenience store area just to the southwest, which is zoned general retail. The surrounding properties to the north is agricultural and undeveloped land. To the east is agricultural and rural residential uses along North Pea Ridge Road. To the south, I have the pictures showing actually agricultural and rural residential and retail uses. The south actually, the top portion is south along North Pea Ridge Road, and then the bottom picture is south along State Highway 317. And to the west is agricultural and rural residential uses along State Highway 317. In the requested single-family 2 zoning district, some of the allowed uses are single-family detached dwelling, family or group homes, industrialized housing, farm, ranch, orchard or garden, or places of worship. Prohibited uses in the requested single-family 2 district would be HUD code manufactured homes in land lease communities, patio homes, single-family 2 attached dwellings, townhouses, duplexes, zero lot line dwellings, halfway houses, and retail and commercial uses. The development standards for the requested single-family 2 district are: the minimum lot size is 5,000 square feet, the minimum lot width is 50 feet in width, the minimum lot depth is 100 feet, and the front yard setback is 25 feet. The side yard setback interior to the lots are 5 feet, and the side yard setback at a corner or adjacent to a street is 15 feet, and the rear yard setback is 10 feet. For the requested general retail district, some of the allowed uses are single-family attached, duplexes, home for aged, townhouse. Non-residential uses would be office, restaurant, hotel or motel, food or beverage sales, stores without fuel cells. And then prohibited uses would be HUD code manufactured land lease communities, storage warehouses, welding or machine shops, building material sales, boat sales or storage, and all industrial uses with the exception of recycling collection locations. This is the land use and character map, and the majority of the property is green, which is designated as agricultural rural. The lower portion of the property is suburban commercial, which supports the general retail district. And just to explain a little bit about the agricultural rural classification, it's intended for areas within the city limits that do not have adequate public facilities and may have on-site facilities. The classification is meant to protect the areas in active farm and/or ranch use. Chapter 4 of the Growth Management and Capacity of the Comprehensive Plan recommends larger minimum lot sizes than the city's minimum 1 acre minimum to manage premature growth in such areas and to maintain the rural character. Also, residential development within this classification is recommended at very low intensities and permitted or recommended for clustering with a significant open space preservation. Due to densities associated with the single-family 2 developments, the applicant's requested single-family 2 district does not appear to comply with the property's agricultural rural classification, and the urban estates district is actually a lower density single-family development that is compatible with the surrounding rural residential properties, and it agrees with the recommended future land use and character map for this area for the agricultural rural classification. And I'll explain a little bit about that in my presentation. This is just a map showing the trails in the area and basically the land, the roadway classifications. State Highway 317 is a major arterial, and North Pea Ridge Road is a collector. With the standard regulations, a 6-foot wide sidewalk would be required along State Highway 317 since it's an arterial, and a collector would require a 4-foot wide sidewalk with development. Let's see. This is just showing on the screen the utilities that are available in the area. And presently, there are some existing water lines that are in the area. We have a 16-inch water line across the street of State Highway 317. And along North Pea Ridge Road, we have an 8-inch water line. We don't have any sewer lines in close proximity to the property, but as you can see further on down the street on State Highway 317, we have a sewer line here, and there is sewer to the south of this development. And the applicant has made reference to other meetings that he would, if this was approved, he would bring sewer to the property from the existing developments to the south. We sent out 13 notices, and we did not receive any in agreement or in disagreement. I had quite a few phone calls asking about what was proposed, but I did not have any responses that were mailed back to me. Staff is recommending approval of the requested rezoning to single-family 2 district for the following reasons. As I described earlier, the property is within the agricultural rural classifications, but due to the City Council direction on November 21st, 2013, in the workshop regarding single-family developments in the areas such as agricultural rural classifications, staff is anticipating future changes to these areas of the future land use and character map for suburban residential uses, which would bring the applicant's request today, that as it is, into compliance with anticipated development in these areas. And although the requested single-family district complies with the Thurfer plan, presently North Pea Ridge Road is not built to its collector classification. State Highway 317 would be more suitable for proposed traffic until North Pea Ridge Road is improved. Also, water facilities are available to the subject property, and although sewer facilities are currently not available to the site, as I mentioned previously, the applicant has indicated that he plans to extend services from the south to this property. Staff recommends approval of the requested rezoning to general retail district on the portion adjacent to State Highway 317 for the following reasons. And basically, that was just based on the same workshop that I mentioned previously from November 21st, 2013, that Council had regarding development within the agricultural rural classifications. And so staff anticipates future changes to the future land use and character map for suburban commercial uses in this area along arterials and intersections in other arterials in the area that would bring the applicant's request into compliance with anticipated development in this area. This request does comply with the Thurfer plan, and water facilities are available to the subject property. And as I indicated before, that the applicant does plan to extend sewer services to the property. At its December 16, 2013 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 5-1 to recommend approval of the rezoning from agricultural district to single-family 2 and to general retail district as requested by the applicant. Commissioner Johnson voted in opposition to this request, and Chair Sears was absent, and we currently have 2 vacancies in the commission. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Thank you, Ms. Larley. Council, any questions? This time I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Council. My name is Benjamin Purser. I reside at 5702 Aquarius Drive, Killeen, Texas, 76542. And I'm here on behalf of Killeen Engineering and Surveying tonight to represent the zoning case for the applicant. I'd like to take this opportunity to answer any questions y'all might have.
Thank you, Mr. Purser. Council, any questions for the applicant?
Do you anticipate having access off of Highway 317?
Yes, sir, we do. That was mentioned, and also what was mentioned was because of Pea Ridge Road, which was mentioned in the slideshow, that there might occur to be phasing within this project so that the entrances start at 317, and then later on, as Pea Ridge develops, we'll be able to finish up.
Thank you, Mr. Purser.
Yes, sir. Thank you all.
Anyone else wishing to speak? All right.
My name is Mark Hawkins, and I live at 1874 Dewberry Lane. My property will join on the south side there. I'm not trying to get any zoning or anything changed. I'm just wanting to know if, and this may not be the proper time for it, on the sewer services and stuff, we'll be allowed to tap into that. I'm thinking that probably what they're proposing on the coming in from the south will be just right outside my property line. As an existing property owner, will we be allowed to, get the city services through that?
I don't know.
Well, assuming it's a line, and we've got the city engineer here, assuming it's a public line that, isn't pressurized, it's just a regular line, you would be able to tap into it.
Okay, thank you.
If it comes by your property, you'll be allowed to tap into it, and we'll make sure that it's not offset from any property lines to have a little buffer that disallows anybody from tying onto it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments? I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first reading of this ordinance.
Motion for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider? Mayor Dunn?
Aye. Item 12, the first reading in a public hearing. Consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a conditional use permit for a biodiesel manufacturing plant on Lot 1, Block 1, Temple Industrial Park, Section 8, on 7 acres, located at 3289 and 3111 Eberhart Road. Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mayor Dunn. Again, as you just described, this is a conditional use permit for a biodiesel manufacturing plant. The applicant is Bill Burden. It's representing Thomas Biodiesel, and this is located at 3289 Eberhart Road. Just a brief map of the zoning that is in the area. The property located here is within the light industrial zoning and is surrounded by a heavy industrial. This is a photograph of the site. It's currently vacant. The applicant is, again, proposing a recycling use for the manufacturing of biodiesel and has been working with TEDC for a suitable location. TEDC did grant them the 7-acre site. Again, it's currently zoned light industrial, and the CUP is required per UDC Section 5.1. All uses in the industrial zoning must conform to performance standards in Section 7.1 of the UDC. The following performance standards would apply to this use permit: noise, odorous matter, fire, and vibration. Noise must be limited to 75 decibels. The applicant has indicated that the equipment that generates the most noise is located at distances far enough from the property line so that decibel levels would be considerably lower than the 75 decibel requirement. Odorous matter must not exceed the odor threshold beyond the property line. Vents will run to a thermal oxidizer as an odor mitigation measure, and the applicant is also working with an odor control firm and will install recommended additional odor suppression systems if they are determined necessary. Storage and use of all flammable liquids must conform to the standards and regulations of Chapter 12, Fire Prevention and Protection of the Code of Ordinances. Vibration must not exceed the limit of displacement when measured at the property line. The applicant has indicated that the concrete will be designed to absorb any vibrations generated by the equipment and will not exceed the displacement ranges at the property line as specified in the UDC. Just an overview of the site plan itself. Following landscape standards are proposed to comply with UDC Section 7.5. 1, a minimum of 5% of the lot area will be landscaped. 2, a minimum of 1 2-inch diameter or 65-gallon tree at the time of planting will be planted for each 40 feet of linear street frontage. And 3, all landscaping will be irrigated. To the north is industrial uses. Again, this is light industrial zoning. To the south are industrial uses, also with the light industrial zoning in place. To the east are industrial uses. These are currently in place and under a heavy industrial zoning designation. To the west is vacant, also with the light industrial zoning. Future land use, again, this is within the industrial district designation and is for the city's industrial uses. A recycling plant for biodiesel is an industrial use and is compatible with the future land use plan. Eberhart Road is classified as a minor arterial. An 18-inch water line is available along Eberhart Road, and an additional 6-inch water line is available along the south side of the property. There's an 8-inch sanitary sewer line that's available on the north side of the property, and additionally a 6-inch sanitary sewer line on the south side of the property. All thoroughfare and infrastructure is in place and sufficient for the proposed use. No existing or proposed trails were identified, and sidewalks are not required along Eberhart Road per UDC Section 8.2. Development regulations would be subject to all standards in the UDC Section 7 unless identified in the ordinance for this PD. 8 property notices were sent out within the 200-foot buffer notification area. To date, staff has received none in agreement or none in disagreement. Staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit for a biodiesel manufacturing plant for the following reasons. The request is compatible with the future land use and character map. The request complies with the thoroughfare plan. The proposed use is compatible with the surrounding uses, and public facilities are available to serve the subject property. At its December 3rd, 23rd meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 6-0 in accordance with staff recommendation to recommend approval of the conditional use permit for a biodiesel manufacturing plant. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Council, any questions? This time I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Council, Charlie Ayers with Temple Economic Development Corporation, 120 Andy Lane, Temple, Texas. It's the house where the loud music's coming from.
We've heard it. We've heard that about you.
Okay. I did want to make you all aware that we do have the top executives from Thompson Biodiesel with us here this evening. I appreciate them taking time to come into Temple. So if you have any questions specifically regarding the project, they've been studying all day. They're ready to answer any questions that you have. So I just wanted to make you all aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ayers. Anyone else wishing to speak? I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first reading of this ordinance.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. And gentlemen, thank you for your willingness to make such a significant investment in our city. Wish you well. Thank you. Item 13, first reading and a public hearing. Consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a zoning change from heavy industrial to planned development heavy industrial district in the I-35 corridor or overlay on 2 acres being a tract of land out of and a part of the George Gibbons Survey, abstract number 345, addressed as 4206 South General Bruce Drive. Mr. Chandler.
Thank you, Mayor. The applicant is actually Temtech Solvent and represented by Jason Donalick. And just to give you a little bit of background about what is proposed, specifically it's for a 10,051 square foot warehouse on a 2-acre site adjacent to the existing Temtech Solvent industrial facility. And it's extension of the adjacent solvents company makes it considered an industrial use and subject to the I-35 corridor standards, which in this sub-district called the Freeway Retail Commercial Sub-District, industrial uses are actually not allowed. So a planned development would allow for the expansion of this non-conforming industrial use, but keep in mind this is just for a warehouse. So here you can see the site, which is 2 acres. It's in the heavy industrial area along I-35, adjacent to commercial. Here you can see the aerial. Just to the west is the existing Temtech's industrial building. And so in terms of the standards that they have met with the I-35 standards, 15% of landscaping is required. The applicant is actually proposing 19%. The frontage will be landscaped with 12 mountain laurels and 8 crepe myrtles. The northeast side will have dwarf holly shrubs planted directly in front of the building. Crepe myrtles and dwarf holly shrubs are proposed, and the remaining area will be sodded. And also per section 343, a development plan, or also known as a site plan, is reviewed concurrently with the PD request, as was mentioned in a previous case. And here you can see that site plan with the proposed landscaping. providing some buffering and screening to the front of the building, as well as along General Bruce with crepe myrtles and mountain laurels. The following building materials and architecture is proposed: a split-face block for the bottom 50% of the facade, ephes, which looks like stucco for the remaining 50% on the front, and sides with metal on the rear. 2 loading docks will be located at the rear of the building, and 3 entries, including a 12-by-10 roll-up door on the south side. And so here you can see the warehouse that has a combination of masonry materials, the ephes and the split face block, along with the metal roof. So this is a side profile at the top, the rear, the bottom. Actually, that was the front at the bottom. Here's another side profile, and at the bottom you can see the rear with the 2 loading doors. Here's the subject property, currently vacant, of course. Existing Temtex immediately to the west. Across I-35. Undeveloped HI property to the north. To the west, light industrial undeveloped property. In terms of compliance with the future land use plan, chose this site as auto urban commercial district, designated for high-intensity commercial uses rather than high-intensity industrial uses, which HI, heavy industrial zoning district, currently allows. The new building is an extension of an existing industrial use. However, it is not compatible with the future land use plan, but it is compatible with the surrounding area and the current underlying high industrial zoning. In terms of compliance with the trails master plan and sidewalks, no trails exist or are planned in the area. 6-foot sidewalks are required per section 8.2. However, no sidewalks currently exist along surrounding properties, and the area is not conducive to pedestrian use. Therefore, the applicant is requesting a sidewalk waiver. The development would be subject to all standards in the UDC Section 6.7 unless identified in the ordinance for the PD. And so the following waivers would be granted if the PD is approved. So these would be in the ordinance. 1, an articulated entrance and the minimum of 3 architectural elements. 2, no windows would be required. 3, 50% of the facade will be masonry instead of the required 70%. 4, include split block as an approved primary material and ephes as an approved accent material, and the sidewalk waiver. For notices sent out to property owners within 200 feet, 1 was returned in agreement to the request, 0 in disagreement. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning from HI to PDHI for the following reason. The development is compatible with the surrounding area and meets the intent of the I-35 corridor overlay standards by providing masonry and additional landscaping. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Council, any questions? This time I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Mayor and Councilman, my name is Rodney Scott, 4208 South General Bruce Drive. I am the applicant in this matter, and I'll certainly be willing to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Any questions? Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first reading of this ordinance.
Motion to approve item 13 of the regular agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider.
Aye.
Mayor Dunn.
Aye. And thank you for your continued investment in our community. The resolutions, item 14, consider adopting a resolution authorizing an appeal of standards in Section 6.7 of the Unified Development Code related to the I-35 Corridor Overlay Zoning District. for landscaping, window, architectural, and lighting to build a new 5,000-square-foot freestanding building that is consistent with the rest of the Bird Creek Crossing Shopping Center. Mr. Chandler.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. The applicant is Brian Worsham of Enviroplan Architects and Engineers. And as mentioned in the caption, this is a proposal for a new 5,000-square-foot mattress firm on .789 acres. It's a pad site at the existing Bird Creek Shopping Center. And so this is a request for a set of appeals from the standards for the I-35 corridor overlay relating primarily to architectural design, landscape, and lighting. And it's intended to match the shopping center design as it currently exists. You can see up in the top right-hand corner where pad site A is located. It's to the northwest of the rest of the Bird Creek Shopping Center. You can see this is the Men's Warehouse here, this building immediately to the right, Five Guys, burger joint as well. And then immediately to the south, you can see the site plan, which we'll show in a little more detail in a second. This is a shot looking to the northwest of pad site A. And here you can see the adjacent Bird Creek Shopping Center building that I referenced before. And so it'll match, or be very consistent with this in terms of the architecture and the materials. And so a summary of the standards that are met or exceeded are as follows. Parking curb and gutter provided, interior parking islands, which require one 3-inch tree in each. Storage restrictions are met, mechanical equipment and dumpsters are screened, and the minimum landscaping required at 15%, they're proposing 25%. Irrigation for the landscaping, which will be native landscaping, 3 architectural elements, the signage, architectural material and colors, and full cutoff lighting as well. And so to go through the list of appeals that are requested, one is wheel stops within the shopping center, and next to it you can see the justification for that. It's really consistency with the existing shopping center. Also a 6-foot deep landscape bed along 70% of each facade. None at the front display windows nor at the rear to prevent lengthening the retaining wall, as is the justification proposed by the applicant. They don't want to obscure the display. Also, a request for noncompliance with the landscape buffer area, even though they meet or actually exceed the percentage of landscaping, because it's such a small site, they're unable to meet the 25-foot front and 10-foot side buffer area widths. By code, a 2-foot tall berm within at least 50% of the buffer area is required. They're providing shrubs and trees in lieu of, and once again, it's a tight site, so they were unable to provide the berm. 5-gallon shrubs every 30 inches along the walls, and once again, that's related to the rear and the retaining wall. They'll actually have shrubbery along the retaining wall, but will not be able to on the rear wall itself. Maximum of 80,000 lumens per acre is the lighting intensity required within the I-35 overlay district. Is determined to be not adequate by the lighting consultant, so they're exceeding that. 40 to 80% windows along each facade. They're proposing 60% on the front, 20% on the sides, and none on the rear. And if you remember the text amendments that you all just passed, in the future, the rear would not require the windows on the I-35 corridor overlay. That was one of the text amendments. 70 to 90% primary building material composition. They're providing 61% front, 89% sides, and 100% rear stucco. 10 to 30% accent building material. which in this case is stone, and so they're providing the inverse of the previous number 8. A sign setback of 10 feet. They'll be able to provide 1 foot, and once again, it's due to the tight site constraints that they're not able to provide 10. Number 11, enhanced paving of driveways into the site, such as scored concrete or decorative pavers, which would be inconsistent with the existing development, so they're proposing not to include that. Number 12 would be a 4-foot minimum offset of building entrance to essentially better identify and articulate the front, and their argument is they're providing some architectural features that serve that same purpose. Number 13, decorative lighting where appropriate, and the decorative lighting would be inconsistent with the Bird Creek Shopping Center, which is why they're not proposing that. And then a tripartite architecture form, which would be basically a defined base, middle, and top to the building. And they're providing the intent of that with various materials and architectural features that are consistent with the existing shopping center. So here you can see just the basic site plan. And let's go to the landscape site plan, where you can see the trees are proposed around the perimeter and the parking islands and native grasses and shrubs throughout. In terms of the elevations, you can see the side elevation at the top, the north, so the combination of the stucco and the stone and the metal fabric awnings in this case. And at the bottom, this is the front elevation, south elevation, another side, and then the rear, the east elevation, which is all stucco. And in terms of the lighting, once again, it's full cutoff lighting to prevent light trespass. So staff recommends approval of all appeals as submitted. P&Z recommended unanimous approval on January 6th. Be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Council, any questions? There's no further discussion. Is there a motion?
Motion for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. Item 15, consider adopting a resolution authorizing support for the submittal of a tax credit project for family living projects by the following. 1, Blazer Development, which has been withdrawn by the developer, and 2, Roundstone Development.
Mayor, I'll be happy to make a couple of comments, at least from the staff perspective. Ms. Fouts had to leave for the evening. So you did have this item presented to you, Brownstone Development, in your workshop. I think we have the capability, if need be, to pull that presentation back up if you'd like to go through that again. But again, we'll only do that upon request. Just as a reminder, it's in your agenda item there, but the tax credit project that is before you requesting a resolution of support is been named Cedar Creek Villas. It's a capital investment of a little over $11 million. The project would be 88 apartment units along West Adams Avenue at 6758 West Adams Avenue. There are again, a variety of items in your packet relative to the specifics of the project. The project developer is also here again at the regular meeting as he was in the workshop. He would be happy to address any questions that you might have. The one point that I would highlight and again, the project developer addressed this question in the workshop, as well as in some conversations I've had with him prior to this. From my chair, I do have a little bit of concerns about the local government contribution component. And it's not through anything the developer has done or not done differently than a previous project in this community. It's a change in the state rules and regulations, as I understand it, relating to tax credit projects. But that does present a little bit of a concern from my chair for the local contribution requirement that is apparently now not quite as flexible as perhaps it once was in the past. So that's a little bit of a concern from my chair. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions from a staff standpoint. And again, the project developer is also here.
Thank you, Mr. Blackburn. Council, any questions, comments? We're not scheduled for a public hearing, but if the applicant would like to say anything, you're more than welcome to do so.
I'm Bob Culvert with Brownstone Development out of Farmers Branch, Texas. The only thing I'm going to mention is something that I forgot to say during the workshop, and it has to do with the zoning of the property. Part of the property is already zoned multifamily, so what we're proposing in that area is consistent with what's already allowed in that particular area. So I forgot to mention that earlier, and that's the only thing I really wanted to add.
Thank you very much.
As far as the
You might.
contribution, I'm sorry. We can work that out separately. That doesn't have to be anything that has to be addressed now. There's plenty of time through the summer, if need be, to address that issue. So we can deal with that at a later time, but just to address that concern.
Thank you, sir. Council, any questions or comments? I think to echo on what Mr. Blackburn said, probably the biggest concern of mine was the overall makeup between the lower income and market units, and I do appreciate Roundstone looking at this again, and you certainly have a nice development with Salmon's senior, the fairways at Salmon's, I'm sorry. But at this point, if there's no further discussion, I'd entertain a motion. Motion for one and?
Yes.
Motion for 15-2. Item dies for lack of a motion. Item 16, consider adopting a resolution authorizing the purchase of an approximately 4.17 acre tract of land near the City of Temple's landfill.
Mayor, members of the council, this item, the resolution you have in your packet, would authorize the acquisition of a 4.17 acre tract at 4435 Little Flock Road. The purchase price is $55,000 with estimated closing costs of $7,000. This is the last tract we need for a possible future expansion of our landfill. There's a mobile home on the tract, which we would allow we have no need for. We would allow the owner to remove that. Because we have no immediate use of this property, and consistent with what we've done in our other acquisitions, we would also lease the property back to the applicant for up to 5 years with the requirement that he maintain the property. And I'll answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Graham. Council, any questions? I'll entertain a motion on this item.
Motion to approve item 16.
Second. Motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider? Aye. Mayor Dunn?
Aye. If there's nothing further, this meeting is adjourned.